starting. Yeah.
Good evening. Good evening. Let's try it again. Good evening. So you'll be here with us for a little bit, and then we'll transition over at the end to the quad, where I know there's some yummy food waiting, because y'all are tearing up this popcorn and those pretzels. Hi, welcome. We're so glad to have you. I'm Dr. Kristina Bethea Odejimi. I'm the Associate Vice President of Belonging, Engagement, and Community and Dean of Students. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Dr. James Raper. I am the Associate Vice President for Health, Wellbeing, Access, and Prevention. I supervise our mental health services, our student health services, our Office of Respect, and Office of Health Promotion. I'm also responsible for developing a well-being strategy for all 16,000 of our Emory undergraduate and graduate professional students.
So the roles that I directly work with closely is our Office of Student Case Management and Intervention Services, our Office of Student Conduct, our Office of Racial and Cultural Engagement, which includes our Emory Black Student Union, Central Latinx, and the Asian Student Center, in addition to the Center for Women, LGBT Life, the Barclay Forum for Debate, Deliberation, Dialogue. You want me to keep going? I also work closely with parent and family programs as well, in addition to Emory First. And Emory First is our program for first-generation low, limited, and income students. You want me to say some more? Okay, we're good.
So I want to acknowledge that we're also live streaming, and that this live stream will be available on the Emory YouTube channel later on. So you don't have to write anything down. It'll all be available to you whenever you feel like. Maybe it's October and you get that phone call from your child. You're going to go back and, what did Dean Odejimi say? And you're going to be able to go back and see that. So we get a whole hour with you all, maybe about 45 minutes, before we process to the quad for dinner with the president and the Coke Toast. And why do we do this? So this is something that Kristina and I have done in our careers for over a decade, spending time just with parents, families, and supporters without their students here. So right now, where are your students? They're in their residence halls for the first time, meeting their communities. And we want to acknowledge that this is a really powerful time, a very mixed time with lots of mixed emotions. I'm a therapist by training. I'm a former counseling center director. There's probably a reason why you have a therapist right now sitting in front of you. There will be tissues in the back as you recess, because this is a difficult time, even though it's also a time to celebrate, which we're going to focus on, if I can get my clicker to work. If I can have clicker help, that'd be super great. I also want to acknowledge something personal for me, and that is yesterday, 23 hours ago, I did this exact same thing what you're doing with my child, my baby. My baby is now 6'3", but still my baby. And so I know you're holding a lot. I sat in that audience with a welcoming for parents and families, and I was sitting there just thinking, like, I'm sunbaked. You see the sunburn on my face right now. I'm sunbaked. I had all this emotion leading up to the weeks before we did this. I figured out how to de-loft the bed, which was in of itself a feat of engineering. I met the other parents of the roommate. Thank you. Everyone's doing great. But it's still this, but I'm holding all this stuff. Kid's fine. I'm holding all this stuff. So this is going to be a little bit of a preview of coming attractions for those of you who are doing it the first time, of what the next semester 2 or 3 might be for you as you're adjusting. So let's poll the audience. This is probably the only audience participation. Who is dropping off their baby the first time? All right, look around.
Look around.
Automatic support group has just happened. Second, right?
You're like, okay.
Third, do we have someone who's done their third time?
You're like, woo, thank you.
Dare I say four? Any fourth in the audience?
Woo!
Good gracious.
I don't even know if you want to go past that.
All athletic or academic scholarships, I'm confident. Do I say five? We had five on Monday.
Oh, in the back.
In the back.
I have to find you some type of door prize.
Can we all just Venmo you?
Oh,
like
over here in the corner.
Support your bank account.
All right.
Were you the same people from on Monday that were sitting back there? Okay, because that's where they were last time. Okay, so lots of lived experience in the room. I hope as you recess to the quad and you spend time together, talk about this part. This is one of my favorite parts about the reception afterwards for this program is the parents connecting with each other around this shared experience. It's a new identity for you. Remember, no one can wipe your tushy but me. So generally, as a therapist, I'm in the job of not creating trauma for your children. I do encourage you this one time you have my permission to say this to them as you're leaving, to embarrass them, because now it's all on them. You got all of their adolescence to embarrass them and for them to give you that reaction, but again, you have my permission to do so as you're saying goodbye. So a time of a lot of anxiety, a time where we might be questioning as parents, have I done enough? Are they ready for this next step? They're going to be, as I said to my son yesterday, and in the weeks and months preceding it, you're going to have 100% control over your time, which as a parent is terrifying. We are used to being, to some degree, the directors of our children's lives. We've been responsible for them. Literally, the law says you got to take care of your kids. You got to help them structure things. And now we also want to make them successful to get to a place like Emory. It's taken a lot of structure, taken a lot of coordination, a lot of reminding. I don't think I'm the only parent who's been involved in that. So these are really normal questions. One thing I want to make sure you all hear, and maybe this might be the one thing I wanted to make sure, if you remember one thing, it's this. You've done this before, many, many times. So let's just think about the first day of kindergarten. Your sweet little babies, and their backpacks that are like 10 times their size, and they walk in, and they're like, I'm fine. And you're like, I'm not fine. And if your kindergarten room was anything like my kindergarten room, they actually gave us a window to look through and watch them, which is, I think, just bad form and traumatic for the parents, because then you're just watching them be fine without you. So you did that then. And then you did it when they went on their first kind of group date and outing where they said, no, you're not dropping me off in front of the movie theater. It's going to be 3 blocks ahead of time, and I'm walking, because I don't want to be seen anywhere near you. And you did it, Lord knows you did it, on their first date, and you did it when they got their driver's license, and now you're doing it again. And I know there have been others as well. So I really want to encourage you all to think of this in terms of what they've been able to do in becoming more and more independent, and what you've been able to do as parents, families, and supporters. You've done this before. And as Kristina says, what do you say now? You got this.
You got this. He was a mess, y'all.
Hot mess yesterday.
And
Texting
I
was
literally
happening.
text him everything we had said to parents on Monday, and I put it in quotes. So it's true. It's just a significant transition, and we want to be sure that we also equip you with the transition, because it's just as much as a transition for you as it is for them.
So before I hand the next section over to Kristina, here's the last thing I'll say for this section. Please take a moment, as you all have been for probably many, many, many months, when you got those acceptance letters or emails, as your child walked across the stage to graduate from high school, as you're preparing to come here, you're celebrating them, rightly so. Please take moments to celebrate yourself, They did not do this by themselves. We say that to them too, by the way. You did not do this by yourself. There is a whole team, there's a whole tribe behind you that gets you to where you are. They are standing on the shoulders of giants, as we all do. We know this being older people of different generations. So I hope you all embrace what you've done to help your student get to this place. And we certainly have tremendous gratitude for sharing them with us.
So your student will embark on a journey, and we have found that it's these 3 R's which you should pay the most attention to, as these are the 3 developmental areas where you can expect your student to see significant growth and change. And some of you are looking at it like, ooh, responsibilities. I really hope they get it together in this first week. They will, I promise. So first, let's just talk about responsibilities. There are responsibilities your student will have and responsibilities that you have as a parent, as a family member, as a supporter. It will be critical that your student understands that they drive their experience, and that they need to take full agency to own the responsibilities that they have while they're here. So a few things, take some time to look at those. One of the biggest shifts coming into college is transitioning from a very structured schedule of high school, academic monitoring by teachers, parental supervision. So classes are not all day. They may be every other day. How they spend their time will be critical to their success. Time management, the first one. Additionally, their students' experience should not just only be filled with academic obligations. How they engage on campus with their peers, with their roommate, with their faculty, with the staff, with program offerings, that will be essential and extremely valuable and will deeply enrich their time here. Intentional time should be made to manage chores. I said chores, y'all. Chores. They still have them. Chores, health, eating, sleeping.
They're all going to be having salad all the time, right? That's what college students are known for?
They'll work through it. In my experience in undergrad, when I had a Taco Bell on my campus and it was open till 3 a.m., I made some poor decisions at 3 a.m. Okay, so they will work through it and manage it. There should also be, I think, intentional moments of joy, opportunities for them to connect and center themselves, to connect with family, to connect with relatives, to connect with other people who support them and other loved ones, and engage in activities that they are passionate about and that offers a sense of reprieve for them. That's important. This is also a time where you may see students very excited about their newfound freedom. I can do what I want, when I want, and you can't do anything about it. You can't pop up on campus. Some of you are like, yes, I can.
We're going to talk about that a few slides from now, just so you know.
And there will be some bumps in the road, but I think it's really important that they understand that they're going to have to put some guardrails in place for them to be successful here. And you can help them do that.
Sorry.
I think also just figuring out, in my opinion, of just how to be a college student. What does that mean? What does that independence truly look like? We encourage you to let them try and figure it out, try different approaches to understand what may be shifting for them from their previous environment to their new environment. Maybe before they were waking up super early and doing all of this work, perhaps they're not doing that anymore. And that's okay. Perhaps they're just shifting, right? So we have to give them the space and grace and time to be able to figure out what works best for them. And I think we do this without intervening. We have to let them figure it out in such a way where they recognize that perhaps that's not the best way. I should move about my time. And then they'll become more self-sufficient in the process. So these are some of the pieces that I think are the most critical and that you will probably hear about in the course of your time as they're calling, texting, emailing. You'll probably hear all of these areas probably within your first 6 weeks. I just wanted to look at the
Yeah,
faces as
brief
people were
dramatic
taking
pause
that
for
in,
this slide.
right? Alcohol and other substances. I think this is a really important topic that we are candid about. What conversations have you proactively had around alcohol and other substances? That's really going to be important. You have and you will hear some of this in other venues, but we wanted to make sure we mentioned it here. You can help set the tone around the use of alcohol and other substances. That you can do. Don't feel shy about doing that. Invite you to have conversations with your student around maybe moments and times that perhaps you didn't make a good decision. They'll really value that and then wonder why you didn't tell them that story sooner. So I really want you to think about how they will listen to the messages that you send and to speak candidly and openly, honestly about possible consequences in utilizing different types of substances. That is going to be an important conversation. Acknowledge and empower them to make their choices, to listen to themselves, which when it will conflict with their peers, it may feel like a big risk. They're their own person, but sometimes we have to learn through it, even if our peers are doing something differently. Educate them about all of the different opportunities that we have on campus to not engage, if that's something that they're choosing to do. And then talk about social alternatives, right? Resources for support, and also how to help a friend. Sometimes you'll get a phone call about a peer or a friend of theirs that may be struggling with something like this. How do you help guide them in having that conversation to help their friend? So these are all important conversation pieces to have. So the tips. Transition from role of the supervisor to that of the consultant. I see so many cameras up
Love
taking
it.
a picture of this
Love it.
slide. Yes. Yes. One of the ways parents can be effective in helping their kids transition and family members help transition is to do just this. And the biggest transition for families as students experience this new independence, and what I told families on Monday, is the transition of having access to information. That's probably one of the biggest transitions that I have seen that families experience when their student goes off to school. As university officials, we are bound by federal law. You cannot call me and just say, give me this information. I am not going to jail. So what I want you to do is I empower you to have those conversations again, candidly. How will you all share information with each other? What is the frequency in that communication that you're going to have? That's really important because before you had access to grades, you had access to a ton of information, health information to some degree. You don't have that anymore. So how do you make sense of that? And how do you encourage them and empower them? And what is the conversation and the pact that you all are going to have in making sure that that information gets shared and gets shared freely? Empower your student to manage stress, address perceived unfairness, and lean into moments of inconvenience. This is the expectation we have of them, and it should be the expectation that you also have for them. It will continue to be important for you to provide more broad guidance around issues pertaining to well-being, providing a framework of what is truly healthy and what's normal, despite what peers are doing. That's going to be an important piece because often students are just trying to figure it out. So an example might be you hear someone talking, you hear your student talking about, gosh, they don't feel like they're getting enough sleep. You keep hearing them say they maybe went to sleep at 1 a.m. You're like, well, What happens when you don't get enough sleep? Sometimes you make poor decisions. Sometimes you're not at your best when you're in the classroom. Sometimes you're moody. So, how perhaps going to bed at 1 a.m. is not going to be convenient. What are the other pockets of time that you have in your day? Have you identified them? How are you utilizing your time? Help guide and have them think about other ways in which they're utilizing perhaps their time so then they can see how perhaps they should go to bed before 1 a.m., right? So that's just an example. Providing that framework about what is healthy and normal, I think also just takes a little time as well for them to just figure it out. Because they may think something is normal because they have seen everyone or they think everyone is doing it. And really, it's not. They just happen to maybe be around a few people who did it in that moment. So, again, you can set the tone in some of these conversations, but ultimately, you still want to empower them to make smart decisions and choices because this is their student experience. And so, it's really important to know that. Sometimes I tell parents, I'm like, a mom one time said, I really want to talk to you and I want to email you, but I don't want you to let my student know I emailed you. And I'm like, mm-mm. If you email, I'm going to copy the student because this is their experience. I can't have a whole conversation with you and they not know that I'm having a conversation about them. So I just want to prepare you for those types of things. It's going to be really important. And I always say, do you really want to call me? Do you really want to email me? And I said, don't email me. And she laughed. I said, don't email me. And I said, take 2 sleeps. And if you really feel like you need to contact me, then contact me. Let's figure it out and figure out what's going on so we can make sure we help you and also help them.
All right, the second R. The first one was responsibilities. The second is relationships. So sometimes I describe, and any of my student affairs or higher ed colleagues, please close your ears because I'm getting ready to condense down your entire master's and doctoral studies into 3 things. They used to be called 7 vectors in the very old days, and I've turned them into 3 Rs. But what I described the college student experience, even more sort of condensed, is the college experience is about what's going on in here, and then what's going on in between here, outside here. So in here, it's figuring myself out, figuring out what I believe, what values did I grow up with that I want to really continue to embrace, which are the ones that I'm going to continue to sort of sort through, and what are some new ones that I'm going to find, because I'm getting exposed to difference. It's one of the best parts of college in my experience. Why I love working, and I think most of us love working in higher education is, particularly a place like Emory, is the diversity of the community. And by diversity, I mean that in all the ways we might think of it. All the different identities who are intersecting in very close quarters sometimes, and then working it out. And our job is to help support that working it out. And that's how we grow and strengthen as a community and learn how to value difference. So that's the inside stuff. And then there's the figuring out, how do I do this with you? Whether it's you and I have different political beliefs, you and I have a different, I like loud music, you don't like loud music. Roommates as a whole, again, whole other slide we're going to talk about in a minute. So that's the work of a university experience inside the classroom and across their lived experience here. And we have a whole group, and I'm going to introduce them later, a whole group of support staff who represent offices, and our job is really just to make that happen, to ensure they are both given this space to figure themselves out, but also that we have a really tight safety net to take care of your students. So roommates, let's think of the different kinds of relationships that your student, as they're here, are managing, are exploring, are having experiences with. So they may, for the first time, have a roommate in a smaller room than they're used to. That may not be true for some of them, but for some it is. And that can be, they've thought about it, they knew it in their head, but actually experiencing it like, oh, right, like, are we sharing clothes or are we not sharing clothes?
Like she legit ate my Cheez-Its and I did not appreciate that.
Legit, right. I mean, you Cheez-Its, yes. And I've been taught sharing clothes is a thing. It's not something I did, but the high drama can happen with the sharing of clothes that was not pre-approved. So when you throw 18 to 19 and 20-year-olds together in a building, it's not always going to be smooth. When you get a phone call or a text or a FaceTime from your student and they say, I don't know that I love my roommate, you should definitely call the president of the university that first time. Thank you for picking up on my sarcasm. So this is
Don't do it.
Sorry?
Don't.
Oh,
do
sorry.
it.
Yes, sorry. This is the sort of Obama
Yes.
translator version
Yes.
of don't do that.
Yes.
So what you should definitely do is remember you're not the director of their lives anymore. You're their consultant. Which is why we do this presentation, not just to remind you of that, but to let you know, like, well, what do I consult about? So then you ask them some great Socratic questioning. So who's available to you to help sort out? How could you understand more about your roommate that might be contributing to this challenge you're having? Who else can you engage to work through this problem? There's going to be a lot of that kind of questioning. Get used to it. Look up Socrates. So we have faculty, the relationship with faculty. Please, this is maybe number 2. If you remember 2 things from this, please remember to encourage your child, and I promise we say this to their students here all the livelong day, get to know your professors. There's a reason why they are here and your students are here, to be engaged as learners. And so take advantage of office hours, go up after class and just introduce them. You don't have to do it all in one first week, but make that a goal for the first few weeks to get to know your faculty members. It addresses a lot of things that when midterms come around or the end of the semester comes around, that can be avoided simply by engaging and developing a relationship with your faculty member. And they really want to get to know your students. This is why they're here. Friends from home. This is a really tricky one. And so I worked in a counseling center for 20 years. I've had a lot of those therapy conversations confidentially with students one-on-one. And often in these first few weeks, one of the things that they're surprised by is how jealous or left out they feel, that fear of missing out. Even though they're having their own new experiences at this institution, they're watching their friends from home move on and expand their own friend relationships. And that can feel a certain kind of way. And so validating that and also reminding them what we all now know about social media, and that it is a curated experience of positivity.
It is so not real.
It is not reality. And I forget that. I look at friends of mine who are my age and they're the best parent ever. What's wrong with me? Their kids seem so happy and well adjusted. And then I have to go, oh, right, yeah, so we're all just humans. So then there's family. That's all y'all and the people you represent back at home. And I've saved this for last, not because you're last, but because you're the one sitting in front of me. And sometimes it can feel like you're kind of the last in line for them. Here's the good news. And again, I'll put on my therapist hat. If and when they come home and you've been looking forward to this, you've had it marked on your Outlook calendar for now months, and they come home and they drop off the damn laundry, and you're like, well, we have a dinner, and I got your favorite things, and then for the next 3 days, these are all things we're going to do as a family. We're going to catch up on all the things that we haven't watched together. They are piecing out like 30 minutes later because they want to go hang out with the friends from high school. Prepare yourself for this, y'all. So here's what I want you to remember, and if you're going to have my email, and Kristina's at the end of this. We're happy to remind you of this. This is called secure attachment. This means you did your job right. They are feeling insecurely attached to their friends because they haven't seen them except what they've seen online, and they feel fine with you. They know you're fine.
But y'all, you're like, I'm not fine.
You're like, I don't feel fine inside, right? So this is like a microcosm of, I don't feel okay, but that doesn't mean we're not okay. It's just I don't feel okay. And that's called grief. And, welcome to that. This is a constant grieving process as parents. And again, you've done this before.
One thing I'll just quickly add as well is sometimes students just like to dump everything. Something might be wrong in that moment. And so you end up being the dumping ground. This is wrong. I don't have any friends. Nobody likes me. My classes are horrible. I can't get connected. And then you're just like, oh my gosh. Like what? And you start freaking out. And then you hear in the background, hey, you want to go get some pizza? Sure, I'll call you later.
Yeah. And
Right?
that happens at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and then you're up for the rest of the night.
Yeah.
They're fine.
And so we try to also remind students to also share the moments that are great and the joyous moments as well, because we know that will leave you sometimes in a frenzy. And so we want to remind them it's important for you to share the good things and the great things and the wonderful things you're experiencing at college as well. So please know we're doing that.
I promised we would talk about showing up on campus uninvited or unannounced. Please do not do that. It is not welcomed by your children. Doesn't mean you don't schedule it. I'm not saying don't come. I'm saying fun surprises at the residence hall room is not a thing. That's an oxymoron. Got me? All right. Your children now thank me. There was one other thing. Oh, yeah, really important. Generally speaking, in this first 6 to 12 months, talking about weight is also not welcomed. Do not do it. I know you're going to want to. And I'm talking as a mental health professional. Don't talk about weight. What you can talk about, if you're concerned, is how they're doing. How are you doing? Not about how they're eating, how they're doing. Weight, if you notice weight changes in either direction, is partly, and I would say most of the time, a reflection of the adjusting to the responsibilities part. My life is totally different. I don't have the structure anymore. It's a new gym for me if I've ever gone to the gym. I don't have my walking path anymore. I'm trying to figure out what to eat at the DCT, and I get pizza if I want every day for 3 meals a day. That's a choice I can make, and I love pizza, which I do. So these are choices. So let's give them some time to adjust to that, just like we would for ourselves. But if you are concerned, talk to them about how they're doing. And if you are concerned, you can call us, and we'll consult with you about to what degree you should be concerned, and then what other resources are on campus to help your student talk through some of the choices that they're making or other things that might be underlying that particular symptom you may or may not be seeing. And generally speaking, purple hair, pink hair, piercings, I'm going to say tattoos, generally appearance and general comments, try to avoid them. They are figuring themselves out. I get tattoos are permanent. But everything else, you can grow out hair and take out your piercings. So
I just want to name that if y'all can see your faces, you're like, you don't want me to say what? They coming home looking like what? And this is just advice that we have learned over our time. Because one of the things, particularly, so I'll just the weight one, they know.
Right.
They know that they have gained a few lbs. They know. They know if they're they know, y'all. And so we try to make sure that they are aware of what are the different options. Perhaps someone, it's like, I really want to understand how to eat better. Okay, let's make sure that we can get you connected with, a nutritionist. There are ways in which we can have the conversations without directly making them feel like they're on edge. So that's what we're talking through.
Tips page. Bring out the cameras. So remember what they're balancing is all the stuff going on in here and all the stuff that's going on in here in my community, in my relationships with others. Encourage them to engage things that feel familiar to them, but also engage things that are new. I feel sad at the idea of a student going through their experience at Emory and it being smooth. And they walk across the stage, they get their diploma, and it was a completely smooth experience. There should be some discomfort in their lives because that means they have stretched. That means they've exposed themselves to different ideas, different majors. They took astronomy and they're English majors, whatever. Studied abroad, I really encourage looking at study abroad. It is an amazing experience. They transform students' lives, many of them. So putting themselves out there, normalize both for yourselves and certainly for them that they're going to have many feelings all at once. We as humans, we have great capacity. We don't have to pick one feeling. We can have many at once, and I'm confident the large majority of you sitting here are having many feelings all at once right now. So they're going through that too. And we have a counseling center director on the Oxford campus. I heard yesterday, Dr. Glass, who said something really lovely, and that is, you can miss home. And that is different from being homesick. The antidote to missing home is visiting home sometimes. The antidote to being homesick is not visiting home. It means you haven't yet created another home. They don't have to pick. Our job, their job, and I would say with your help, is to help them create a new home on this campus at Emory. And then they have more than one. So that's the antidote to homesickness. Some portion of you will get a phone call in the next few weeks, and it will say, I made a terrible mistake. I don't like it here at Emory. Real talk, y'all. It will happen. I'm not saying you ignore it. I'm saying in my 23 years of doing this, the very large majority of that small minority who say that are totally fine. Adjustment think about what they're adjusting to. It takes a while. And we know this. In our world, it's called the first 6 weeks. And you have hundreds and hundreds of staff and all of our faculty who are geared up for our first-year students to help them get through this first 6 weeks and make sure they find their people, their tribe, their class, their place on campus that's their new place, their favorite bench to go and study, or their favorite table to sit at in the DCT to have lunch. So if that persists, call us. We'll help you sort through what might be that's contributing to that feeling of, I don't know that I feel like this is my place yet.
So you probably have some hopes and desires for what you want your student to gain in their 4 years at Emory. Build healthy, fulfilling relationships, academic success, finding and preparing for an enriching career, grow into adults who will lead lives of meaning and purpose, adults who are kind. None of these things will be easy unless your student has some level of resilience. Period. As the students say, period. That is what it is. So these are the roadblocks, and we already know this. This is stuff that you've already experienced, some of which they will experience here. But resilience is just like any other skill. Learning to deal with failure and disappointment takes practice. It takes practice. We know that some of the best lessons, and sometimes the only way to learn that lesson, is sometimes through failure. Help your student navigate that is not the end of their time here. It is not the end of their lives. And we will do the same. Our current culture has wired us to really be afraid of failure or risk. And so we need to work actively with students to make sure that they understand the value in navigating those experiences. And so this can lead to staying within our comfort zone, not taking any risks to avoid failing, lack of experience as a result of not taking risks. Share that, like I said earlier, experiences that you've had where you failed. And some of you are like, but they need to know that I'm great. But there were those moments that I think would be really beneficial if they heard those moments have happened in your time.
Those are gifts that you give them when you do that.
Significant gifts. Rescuing is a short-term fix. I'm going to say that again. Rescuing is a short-term fix. They have to go through it. And they will get through it. It's hard to sit and watch them go through it, but we will help them through it. So what are the things we can do as a family and support system to help our students strengthen their resiliency muscles? All right, phones. There we go. Reframe failure. How do we do that? I think it's just going to be really important that we learn and let them know that failure will potentially happen at some point in their time here at Emory. And I'm not necessarily talking about failing a class. It could be whatever that thing is for them. It could be that friendship, that relationship. It could be a class. It could be an event or a new skill they were trying to pick up. So let them know that reframing it as a learning opportunity, that's going to be critical for them. And embracing the trips and the falls. So how do we brush it off, lean in when it gets hard? And what could they have done differently? What are the growth moments and opportunities? Identify them, name them, call them out to them so that they can see it. And revisit it later. Because sometimes in the moment you can't hear anything. And then 3 weeks later, remember when you were going through X, Y, and Z? And look how you've come out of that. Look how you've shined. Or look how you're now approaching this thing. That's going to be really, really important as they're working with you and working with us, and we're helping them navigate this time. I think one of the pieces about anticipating problems early on is we really do try to normalize it. Some of the things we can anticipate, and we will proactively work with your student to do those things and to be prepared for that. But then there's other situations where they need to be proactive to think about maybe areas where they need some support. There are some things we know we can identify that first-year students transition with in general, but there might be something specific to them that perhaps they need some additional support. So how do you empower them to actively seek out resources and help? That's going to be important. Additionally, I think it's going to be the most important thing is that you are making sure that you're cheering them on, regardless of if they're winning, they're losing, that they know that you're in their corner. And you have to do that also with your words. Sometimes, like, I'll just show, no, they have to hear it sometimes when you're deep down and out and you don't have that security person to lean on. They may not be able to see you eyeball to eyeball. And so it's really important that you say it and name it so that they know that you are still behind them. That's going to be important as well.
So we've arrived at my favorite quote. It is Mr. Rogers. It's really going to make you bring out the Kleenex now because we're going back to Mr. Rogers. When I was a boy, I would see scary things in the news. My mother would say to me, look for the helpers. You'll always find people who are helping. And it's my favorite quote generally, but it's also my favorite quote about why I work in student affairs, why I work with college students, is we have a unique opportunity in campus life in across Emory College to create a support network for your students, to help them do all the things we're asking you all to allow them to do as their consultants. So we do not have, because we have so many, we don't have the opportunity to introduce you to every single person right now who does that. We do have some representatives over here who I'm going to ask to stand up
And
a moment, and some over there, thank
yep,
you.
Yep.
Across the room to represent the offices, some of the offices that help support your students. I'm going to ask them to stand in a moment. This website is called Be Well Your Way, and it's a place that you can go, your students can go. This is maybe one of those, you're not quite sure how to consult with your students, you can say, let's go to that website together and see if we can figure out the right resource or resources to help you figure out this problem you're struggling with. So I'm going to ask our folks, we have, if you can stand up, if you're in a support role in one of our offices, could you please stand up? There'll be a lot of blue shirts standing up.
Some in the back, thank you.
We have Residence Life and Housing. We have the Office of Undergraduate Education. We have Student Conduct. We have Student Health. We have the Office of Respect, Office of Health Promotion, Student Case Management and Intervention Services, Campus Recreation,
LGBT Life,
and First Gen. So that is not even all of them.
Parent and Family,
Parent and Family, thank you.
Student Engagement.
And then Dean Galai, who is our Senior Vice President for Campus Life. She's the boss of all of us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mostly us. Let me remind you as we start closing and we recess to the quad. Kristina and I are here for you. You all, as much as the feelings are here that this is hard, your students are ready. And those are going to be the messages they hear from us. They don't have to have it all. Here's another good one. They don't have to have it all figured out. Let themselves be new at this. They are new college students. You let them be new at this, and we will support them into growing further into the amazing, amazing humans you all have helped to develop them into being.
We are excited about this opportunity that you are about to embark on as a family. We want to continue to be a resource to you in the ways that we can. And we welcome you to come back to campus whenever you're able to come back so that you can be able to see the transformation for yourselves. It's really remarkable. Welcome to Emory University.
Thanks, y'all. So you're going to recess out back the back doors, I believe, and you'll
Heather
find
Mann
folks.
is waving her hand in the back, so if you can follow her. She is in yes, thank you, orange sign.